and negativity and envy and jealousy, I don't look at them. I say, oh, okay, I know the spirit dominating that person. And then I know how to pray for them. And I pray that they do not stay comfortable in that sin. Now, I'm amazed because, one of my favorite scriptures is the woman with the issue of blood. And I use this scripture over and over because God has anointed me to really deal with people who've had issues for many years. And people say to me, why are you talking like that person is not who they are? Why are you looking at them and not seeing what they're doing? Because I don't focus on that. I focus on what God promised me. Again, the mistake the devil made is to let Jesus free me from jail without me paying bail, without me having to go to a lawyer, none of that. I walked out of there and they cleaned my record. You only see something connected to me when you look up my ex-husband's record. And so it just amazes me. That is a testimony for me that just keeps me filled up. And so I started studying this woman with the issue of blood. And I said, look at God. He's so amazing. Jesus was not even thinking about this woman. He was on his way to somebody else's house to do a miracle. He wasn't thinking about her. And this woman had tried everything that she knew. She tried listening to doctors. She tried paying for her healing. She tried everything. And according to society in that day and time, she was unclean. Like some people are seen that are in a homosexual relationship, or some people are seen that are drug dealers, or, you have people with bad marriages. You're seen as something's a little bit off, like this woman. And she tried everything. But she heard that Jesus was going to be somewhere. Now, Jesus was on his way, as I said, with Jairus to go heal his daughter. And as he was going, a crowd was just, the multitude of people were getting bigger and bigger and following him. And he had the disciples with him. So this crowd was huge. But this woman, after trying everything else and nothing worked for her, she then said, if I can just touch Jesus. And my spirit always tells me that we don't have to get a lot of scripture. We don't have to have 10 million scriptures. Just that one little scripture. Like she just touched his hem. One little scripture and stand on it. And everything will change. And for me, I kept hearing, and it will come to pass. And it came to pass. And God promised me that my womb is blessed, and the children of my womb are blessed. And, and that's all I wanted to see. So, ended up with 3 children, and one of them, my last, was my daughter. And she was born premature, and I remember being in the hospital for months because I even remember what I was wearing the day I had her. I'm sorry. Because I didn't even look pregnant. She wasn't supposed to be born for at least another 3 months. And I remember being at my sister-in-law's house. And I said, wow, my stomach's really hurting. And my sister-in-law, Jeannie, is a nurse. And so Jeannie took me to the hospital where she worked, and I delivered my daughter. And I remember them saying to me, oh, because the doctor was hitting her and she wasn't waking up. And I remember Jeannie saying, don't worry about it. You'll have more children. We tried. And I'm thinking, that's not what God showed me. But I didn't know what I know now, the way I know it. And and I've always known to just say, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And I said that in myself, and even when I was in jail, I remember saying, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And I walked out of jail. But now, before then, I had my daughter, and after 6 minutes, now she's supposed to be dead, I heard her cry. but I couldn't take her home because she was so premature. She was so small. And I remember my mother-in-law came from, my mother-in-law came from London, and she was a specialist with preemies. And she came and she took a look at my daughter, and she said, you'll be here with her for a few months, but she's going home. And one thing with preemies, they're fighters. You're going to see her, she's going to be bigger and bolder than your sons. And I'm thinking, okay. But I stayed in the hospital, and my daughter had to get to 5 pounds. And I remember there was another baby in the little preemie ward next to her. He was not even a pound, and they had named him Michael Jackson. But my daughter was about 4 pounds, and they would not let her leave until she became 5 pounds. So she's real tiny. They wouldn't even let me take her out of the incubator. I had to just put my little finger in there, and they gave her this tiny little bottle, and I could feed her, and I would want to stay in that preemie ward for days. And then one day, she got to 5 pounds, and I thought, this is the day I'm going to take her home. And I went back to my room, and they came to me and said, nope, she's lost weight again. Can't take her home yet. And I just stayed in the hospital with her, and then she got to the point where I could take her home. And I looked at my daughter and I said, whatever I dealt with when I had my sons, it's got to be different because I have a daughter now. I can't deal with certain things anymore. I got to be a better example for her. And years later, we bought our first house in Cambridge Heights, Queens. And I remember coming home one day and my daughter was playing with the Ouija board, but I didn't know God the way I know God now. And I didn't know, and I thought, that's nothing, a Ouija board. But it's an open door to all sorts of witchcraft and negativity. And then I got a call from one of my friends, your daughter's in a homosexual relationship. And I'm thinking, not my daughter. No way. I didn't fight to bring her home for this. And so I said, you know what? I'm not even going to believe that. But I'm going to let her tell you the rest. Do you remember that?
I do. I do, and I lied my way out of it. I just kept lying and lying and lying and lying. But I remember the first time I actually realized it was not. I thought, you know, growing up, seeing my mom, and she was so accepting, and because of her past lifestyle, you know, she never really judged people. She always had, I would always bring people home to, you know, Mom, fix them. This is what's wrong. This is what's going on in their life. Please fix them. So I never thought that she would have an issue with me being in a homosexual relationship. But I remember the first time I brought a girl around to her office, and she just came to me. She said she can't be here. She has to go. And I couldn't understand it then. I kind of internalized everything, and I made it like, okay, well, this is not the mom I know. This is not the person that I'm so used to seeing of fixing everybody else. I thought that she was judging other people. But now that I'm older, and now that I, you know, see myself having my own children, I understand that she was not having it because of the fact that I was her daughter. It's different when somebody else is coming into the situation. You know, you have to watch what you say to them. You have to kind of tread softly so that they hear the message. But when it came to her own flesh and blood, I think she saw what she had to go through and everything she was giving up on for her kids, and that promise that God made to her that her womb was blessed. She didn't want to tread softly. She just wanted the whole problem to be done with. And so I do remember that day vividly.
Actually, that day, it wasn't so much that you know, my thing was, if I keep you out of that environment, then you won't fall into it. So that was my thinking. It wasn't like I was judging people, and it wasn't that I was accepting it or not accepting, because you've brought a lot of gay people around me. And, you know, it's not that I accept or not accept, but I looked at it like this, Shannon. If God can pull me out of selling drugs for years, and then one day I had no desire to do it, but no, there was a time I kind of said, well, wow, my mom's accepting it. You know, people spend the money I'm making selling drugs, so, you know, it must be okay. But I didn't want that for you, because I felt like, wow, you know, you were a little baby, and you were still young in my eyes, and, you know, you looked very feminine, and this girl that you brought to the office looked very mannish, and I'm saying to myself, well, how foolish is this? Remember, I would always talk to you and say stuff like, read the Bible. What does God say about that? Do you remember when I made you go find every scripture about what God said about homosexuality?
I do.
And you were like determined. No, I'm born this way, and I'm going to, you know, and that's a stronghold. So after I studied the Word, I had to study. It made me learn more by watching what was going on with you. And I knew that this stronghold really had your mind. And it wasn't you. It was the flesh spirit. And it just, you know, I believe all of us come to this earth with the sin tendency. Mm-hmm. And but when you become new again, those desires change. But God has to change them. So I knew I couldn't change you. But also, like the woman with the issue of blood, do you also remember when we came to my Atlanta, and one of my siblings brought this man to the house who was supposed to free you from homosexuality, mm-hmm. and he was a pastor? What did you feel in that experience?
Well, let me first answer what was just addressed. Mm-hmm. I understand that now. I understand what your position is now. But when I was in that lifestyle and I wanted what I was doing to be right, I put my own meaning behind it, mm-hmm. you know. So I understand what you were doing as a mom now, that you were not being judgmental. But that made it easier for me to kind of go through what I was going through, to put that in my mind, to say, okay, well, she's supposed to be of God. Why is she judging me?
Exactly.
You know.
And you've said it to me. You're like, Ma, God wouldn't do that. And there was some times when you were going through your walk, I just like walk away from you and go pray, because I'm like, God, you promised me that my children would not, you know, have to go through all of this. And